Spoon Bowl. We've got a Spoon Bowl, mate. Last round of the NRL. Before we get into it all, mate, as always, joined by Jordan Tana. How's it going, man?
Yeah, good, bro. I'm looking forward to this fucking spoon bowl, man. It feels like it's almost more rare than like a team battling for the minor premiership. This is a truly special occasion.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy how much has actually been talked about. Like normally around this time of year, you're obviously getting that finals run. Everyone's sort of on the hype around all of that. But man, all we want to talk about is the spoon bowl, and it is coming to us early. It's a shame we've got a top eight position on the line come on Sunday, the last game of the round. But how fitting would it have been if we got to maybe even just reschedule it and just have Sunday have the last game for the top eight, and then followed by the spoon bowl. Everyone can get around it. The boys can get started on Mad Monday a little bit earlier if you want. Get down on the hill there and get behind it.
I love how in the scenario you've played out, you've put the top eight battle, the two teams battling for the last spot in the eight before the spoon bowl. The spoon bowl is the main event. I love that.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I can't wait for it. We're going to jump into a full preview of that shortly. But before we get into that, mate, the All Blacks, they took on South Africa. South Africa did defeat them 31-27. There was a little bit of a controversial call floating around in the knock-on from South Africa. Kind of fitting, mate, when we do a lot of talk around the NRL and our rugby league, and the bunker is obviously something that's discussed quite a lot. And there we go. In international footy, it's not reviewed, mate. What were your takeaways from it?
Well, firstly on the game, man, full credit to South Africa because they kind of did what we have done maybe 10 or so years ago. They looked pretty All Blacks-esque in the way they finished this game, and they sort of closed it out to come back after being 27-17 down. It's kind of something that we would have done back in 2014 under Hansen or something. So they did well to do that. They tried their hardest to give us the game because there was a lot of errors in that first half from them, and they were just trying a little bit too hard to chance their arm. And the game in general was pretty back and forth for the most part because there was a lot of lack of execution on the kickoffs as well from both teams. So it was point here, point there for both teams. But it's that fucking bomb squad in the second half, man. There was a huge lift in intensity that carried the South Africans home. And then they also had this real dynamic kicking game that the All Blacks before that, like earlier in the game, were kicking really well, and they were really threatening the back three of South Africa by pushing for those 50-20s and just putting them in areas where it found grass and it actually had to make the back three for South Africa think. But then in the second half, in the last 15 minutes specifically, they kind of came away from it, and it really has to go down to like some decision making around those kicking positions in that last 15 minutes that really let us down in that game. And I can see why Rassie Erasmus, the mad scientist of a coach that he is, loves this guy in Sasha Feinberg Mamazulu. I hope I pronounced that right. But he is a perfect instrument for the mad tactics of Rassie Erasmus with his kicking game because he's just so dynamic in his option taking. He's very creative in the types of kicks he puts out there, a lot of variation, always good at finding the right areas of the field, and obviously had a monster boot with that 60-meter penalty kick, which, you know, a little bit of an asterisk with the high velt and this thin air up there, but still absolutely amazing kicking game from him. But, man, the All Blacks played actually really good. So this is a really confusing game to, like, gather my thoughts around and how we sort of lost this game. Because
I just want to I want to pause you there. I agree with you 100%. When we were talking about it last week, we were discussing sort of their identity from the All Blacks and how they're going to play this. And then I thought about it, and when I was watching the game, I kind of came to fruition with it. You can't really play South Africa like that because of how physical they are. You've just got to sort of not weather the storm, but it is kind of that saying that you've got to meet them physically, you've got to meet them at the ruck, you've got to meet them at the advantage line, and you've got to just take your opportunities when they're on offer. I thought Caleb Clark played fantastic, and I thought we did a good job at weathering that. The only thing that gets me a little bit worried is, like you said, South Africa, they bombed quite a few tries. A lot of kicks put through and a lot of handling errors where had that gone to hand, they would have scored. So I agree with you 100%. I'm a little bit frustrated with the All Blacks, and it's sort of just game management, I guess, on how they close this out. But I was really impressed with how they came up against this first test against them.
And it was a very, like, simplistic approach. Like, we really just worked well. The simplistic approach really worked well because of the territory that South Africa afforded us. We were playing really direct around the ruck. You talk about physicality, but I actually thought we did an outstanding job at matching their physicality and
Yeah,
not
yeah,
getting bullied off
that,
the ball.
that's what I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and the go forward was really good from us as well. And then we were really good to like pounce on those opportunities for Caleb Clark and shift it wide when there was a bit of a mismatch or a turnover, and we really stripped them on the outside. So it was a good performance, but just the scoreline and the fact that they were able to come away with the win makes me kind of like wanting like what more can we do? Like that was our best shot to beat
Mm.
them over there in Ellis Park with what they gave us in that first half, and they still clawed their way back in and got the victory. So I really don't know where I'm going to go with this next result because Razor Robinson has proven he can adapt and like create a game plan for teams, but there seems to actually be a prevalent gap between us and South Africa in terms of the quality of these teams, in my opinion, even though we only lost by 4 and should have won the game. So
I'll give you
yeah,
something. The All Blacks have won 4 of their last 5 games against the Springboks at Cape Town. So the Boks
yeah,
last beat us there in 2005. So I guess if we'll sort of take you back to our preview in Wellington and obviously what that bad juju does to us. Maybe there is a little bit of juju factor here for the All Blacks, for the Springboks up against the All Blacks in Cape Town. But yeah, I agree with you. It's kind of tough because I thought that this was going to be the game where we took those learning curves and we went into the second test match against them and we sort of came out, chanced our arm and potentially come away with a win there. But you're right, 100%. We just missed out on a win there, and it's going to be interesting because, like I said, South Africa missed out on opportunities to capitalize and potentially blow that game out. So I don't really know where to go in this one, but I'm going to stick with an All Blacks win here because I do want to see Razor and those boys sort of just close a game out. See if we can time manage, or not time manage a little bit more, but just game manage ourselves a little bit better to a victory. And I'd like to see where they identify some weaknesses potentially in that Springbok pack.
yeah. I would love the All Blacks to win. If you were to put a gun to my head right now, I probably will back South Africa to get the job done. But we did show a lot that we can still compete with these best teams in the world, and it's frustrating the way that we did lose that game.
Mm,
It's almost the opposite of what the All Blacks are known for. We're usually known for closing out games or
yeah.
coming back and snatching victories from the grasp of defeat, but this was the opposite. But I will say that Imbanami knock on was an absolute fucking joke. That was a clear knock on, should have been reviewed, and the difference was it should have been at least a draw or maybe even an All Blacks victory if you minus that try away. So yeah, terrible, terrible officiating from both the ref and the TMO on that one.
It's pretty wild, like how you'll get that, and then you'll get a yellow card play that will then have a time lapse to be upgraded to a red card, or you'll go back into a TMO and officiate back multiple phases looking for some sort of, it's a little bit weird, and then it comes to a try scored and we're just going to award it without even just having a review of the process. Like the try has been scored, they're setting up to, I'm not well, I am bagging it, but I'm not saying, like, I'm not taking away from the fact that
Deserves
Springboks,
to be bagged.
yeah,
Deserves to be bagged.
I'm not taking away the fact that the Springboks won that. But there's a lot of time. He's scored the try. The kicker's getting set up. What are they reviewing in that time? Just a simple going through, ticking everything, and then it's just a simple, oh no, like we'll call that off for a second, and we're going to review it. I thought Sam Cane was walking out from the goal line there to challenge it and just say, "Are we reviewing this?" But then, the shot clock expired on him as well. So yeah, a bit of a blunder there. I did like as well that I saw a little bit of creativity around the line-out play as well from the All Blacks too. So it's kind of interesting. There's a few. I guess we're playing a little bit of follow the leader around there. So it'll be interesting to see where we find our niche. But look, I'm gonna stick to my guns and I'm gonna say that the All Blacks do win this, and that's just on the fact that I'd like to see us bounce back and right the wrongs on what we've learned from this one. That's what I want to see from them. And I agree with you 100%. That's what the All Blacks are known for, closing games out. That's what Razor's known for, and that's what the Crusaders have been known for so many years, on learning and adjusting throughout a game. They come out in the second half, and that's when they strangle you up the tempo and close out a game. So, yeah, it'll be interesting.
Just a question: do you reckon the effectiveness of that 6-2 or 7-1 split that South Africa go with is just absolutely taking them to higher levels in that second half and really being effective. Does the All Blacks need to do something of a similar pattern, like maybe drop a winger and just go with a 6-2 split with some more forwards like a
Yeah.
Wallace Satiti or some physical forwards like that?
Yeah, I agree with you. The back line that we have, we've got a lot of players that can cover multiple positions and we can adjust a lot from there. The only thing with South Africa is they've got Quagga Smith who can cover the back line as well. So it's kind of like that, I guess, Ben Hunt versatility, if you want to use just a league term into it. So that's, I guess, maybe their loophole in it. But I agree with you 100%. I guess it's just sort of like where they identify that impact and where it's going to come from, because you've obviously got your front row, which you're going to replace. It's going to be one of those locks that shift and potentially rotate a flanker. Maybe you bring in someone else, or I'm not too sure, mate. And they do like to pull trigger on a first substitution sometimes before it's even half time as well. So the Springboks do some wacky things, but I do agree with you, man. I feel like we might have to start figuring out ways of how we sort of adapt towards this. We're going to move into accountability. I'm going to save questions and headlines for as we go through the review, because it's a bit of an injury concern throughout there, and we'll spend a little bit more time on that. But moving to the accountability, mate, do you want to take us through it?
Yeah, so in terms of the picks, I got 4 from 8, and you've had a pretty good one going 5 from 8, especially considering there was a lot of upsets. So good tipping from you. We start off with the Cowboys beating a young Storm team, 38 to 30. Sorry, and we've both hit here. Cowboys -6.5. So I've just come through with that, and then felt anytime try scorer has come through for me.
Nice. I've ended up taking Taulagi in this one as well, and the Cowboys to win at $2.20. I was quite hesitant leading up to this. I wasn't sure if we'd see a B team Storm come out there and surprise us a little bit, and I thought we were in for a surprise there. But yeah, that one cashes in for me there.
And then your Bird Gang, the Seagulls, absolutely doing a jobby on the Bulldogs, 34 to 22. I've gone Bulldogs 1 to 12, thinking they could win a close one, but unfortunately not.
Yeah, and I've taken Manly to win here and Hamole because I thought he was due. He was not due, so we go down at $6.50 there.
That's a real unfortunate miss too, because he did stick the big mitt out and try to bring it in for a try, but fortunately got declined by the TMO. Panthers beating the Rabbitohs 34 to 12, and probably the least surprising result of the round. I've gone Panthers 13 plus, but I've gone into a Targo anytime try scorer, which has not hit.
Tough, yeah. I've gone Panthers 13 plus there. I went Luai and Edwards at $8. We go down there. Never looked like they were going to score.
And then perhaps one of the most nutty games I've seen in recent memory, Eels beating the Dragons 44 to 40, an 84-point match. The Eels up 44 to 12 with 11 minutes to go, and then had the game on the line in the last play. It's absolutely crazy stuff. I've gone Eels 1 to 12, which has hit, thankfully, for the Dragons.
Yeah, crazy kind of stuff, man. And it just keeps on leading us into that spoon bowl. I've gone Zach Lomax to score against his new team and the Eels to win at $4.20, so we cash there.
And then another crazy result with the Dolphins absolutely wiping the floor with the Broncos, 40 to 8, with some mad scientist genius changes from Wayne Bennett, the GOAT himself. I've got Broncos -8.5, and that well and truly is.
Yeah, the mad scientist is, as we get into the preview, I feel like he might have gone a little bit too mad this week. I've gone Cobbo and the Broncos to win at $2.37. Terrible punting there.
And then the magic. Sean Johnson in his final game, producing some magic. We might get to that later. Warriors beating the Sharks 30 to 28. I've actually shown no faith here because I've gone Sharks -2.5 into Stone Street anytime try scorer, which hasn't hit, but it was almost the absolute worst result for me because up until that game winner from Sean Johnson, the Sharks were winning 28 to 26, which would have not covered the line. So I would have had the Warriors lose and not hit my bet, which would have been absolutely devastating for me. So luckily the Warriors got it done for us.
Nice. Well, I backed the Wires, mate. I believed in fairy tales. I went on a mad spiel about the Tooth Fairy, Santa Claus, and the Easter Bunny. Sean Johnson brought home the chocolates for us there. I went for an SJ AFE and the Wires to win at $37. I double staked it. We don't go cash in there, but mate, you can't be too upset sitting there watching that unfold.
Nah, great scenes for the Warriors. Are the Knights looking pretty good at the moment, beating the Titans 36-14? I said the Knights went to 12 and they've actually cleared it.
Nice. I've gone for Kenny and Ponga at $7.50 and King of the Tush Push, mate. We push on that one.
Very nice stuff. And then the Raiders beating an absolutely decimated with injury Roosters team 14-12. I've gone Roosters 13 plus and Tedesco anytime try scorer double stakes. So bit of an asterisk there, but still a miss.
Yeah, shit show out there in that one, mate. I've gone Dom Young, Savage, and the Roosters to win at $4, and we've gone down there. Repeat set bets, Matt. Selwyn Cobbo, anytime try scorer, at $1.72. If you're following along with the stats don't lie multi every single week, it's a very, very dark week to be on Cobbo, mate. It was the lock of the week, and he let me down on a few big ones. But 40-20 bets, mate. All upset winners, Manly, Eels, and the Warriors to win at $26.52. We cash in there. That takes our unit collect for the round at a plus 26.92, which brings our current units up to 82.44. So if you're a $10 unit bidder, you'd be plus $824.40 on the season. The 40-20, mate, right at the end there, we've gone bang on it.
Beautiful, beautiful tipping. And it was a perfect week for that sort of bet in terms of 3 underdogs in your 40-20 because a lot of shenanigans. So great tipping from you. And then that Cobbo miss for your big stats don't lie multi.
Yeah.
Dan, that's the kind of things you take personally, when it's not really their fault at all, but you just remember that like, oh, Cobbo, you cost me that big multi that one time.
Yeah.
In terms of my repeat set betting, still cold. Roosters 13 plus hasn't hit. And then the 40-20s no better, but pretty close this time. Panthers 13 plus, Cowboys minus 6.5, and then unfortunately just the Broncos minus 6.5 has missed. And then, yeah, a bit of a dusty week for me. Unit loss of minus 5.2.
That's part of it, mate. Moving into the performances of the round, I'll kick us off. I've gone Herbie Farnworth here in this one, mate. Game high, 287 run meters, 2 tries, 2 try assists, 3 offloads, 7 tackle breaks, 2 line break assists, and 3 line breaks. The Dolphins came in, they absolutely ambushed the Broncos. Herbie up against his old teammate. He absolutely delivered in this one. If we're talking about Dally M Centres of the Year, I think Critter and Herbie Farnworth have locked themselves in there, mate. But as for that performance on the weekend, absolutely fantastic. The whole Broncos squad was unreal, but Herbie, he just had probably the game of his career out there in that one. It was a catalyst to Wayne. He's been managing him so well this season. We've seen him obviously he came in with a lot of form and he sort of struggled a little bit early on, but as the season has progressed on, we've just seen him get better and better and better, and he looks absolutely fantastic, mate. He was going at Cobbo all afternoon.
Man, honestly, I said it a couple of weeks ago. I think he's the best centre in the competition. I know he's from England, so he doesn't get that light, but he is an outstanding player. He's just such a good athlete. He's actually really quick with ball in hand. He's really elusive. He has some of the fastest play of the balls for an outside back. Just really gets to his front and plays the ball super quickly. He's an exceptional talent, man. And shout out Herbie. I hope you guys kind of make the finals just so we can see you back in that situation with a new team. So Herbie Farnworth, outstanding performance. But we alluded to it earlier. We are the Sean Johnson guys of the sports podcast space, the rugby league podcast space. And we're going to stick with it here for my performance of the round. I'm going Sean Johnson of the Warriors because it's an absolute fairy tale ending to a storied career. And just like Herbie with the Dolphins and the Broncos, there is a lot of elements in play that just make this such a special occasion because it's against the only other NRL club that he has played for. And they came back from 22-6 down, not dissimilar to what they did last year in the rain in that game as well against the Sharks. And then it also just reminded me, him being involved in the game-winning play, reminded me of that game-winning try he got, that famous try against the Sharks in 2015 as well. So there's a lot of connections between Sean Johnson, the Warriors, and the Sharks, whether as a player or whether as a rival. And it was just so storybook to see him getting the game-winning play and play super good as well, because I said this a couple of weeks ago that I just wanted to see him, now that the season was kind of over for the Warriors, just play with a bit of freedom and just loosen up a little bit. And you saw that in this game because every big play that he did, every big play the team did, there was just a smile on his face. You could see a smile on his face whenever he was taking the kick. you could tell that he was really embracing the moment and just really leaving it all out there. And his performance was outstanding stats-wise as well. 176 run meters, 2 line breaks, 1 line break assist, 3 try assists, 3 tackle breaks, 503 kick meters, and just an outstanding performance, man. I know it's been kind of beaten to death, the whole Sean Johnson retirement saga at the moment, but it was a truly special occasion. So you can understand why people are definitely inspired by this performance in his last game. So shout out Sean Johnson, man. You're putting the coast on the map and you're doing great things. Wish you well in your future endeavors.
Yeah, I loved it, bro. It was like the performance and everything is fantastic. The way he got to end his career on a moment like that, that's what he'll be remembered for. But just the whole game itself, like when they weren't obviously in the lead, they were coming back from it, and you just see him sort of interacting with the crowd, with a lot of the players. He just looked like he was really enjoying the whole moment out there, which was fantastic to see. You could see him after every kick turning around at the crowd and kind of having a little giggle, whether it was going over or it was missing. It was just made it really enjoyable to watch, and just sort of, you don't normally get to see games like that from players in their last game. You could see he was really lapping it up, and you could see how much it sort of meant to him to know that that's it. And then to get a moment like that, man, it's so cool. Like, you talk about, like, it's just stuff that you do in the backyard, like when you're a kid and things like that. And it was special to watch, and like you almost felt like you were kind of a part of it as well. Just the way he kind of like acts, acts around, and you're just watching it. You invest yourself in the character of Sean Johnson that little bit more. It was fantastic. I thought though that potentially the MVP on the night was his partner with the signs. I'm not sure if you've seen that, but if the Sean Johnson's going to score tonight. That sign was pretty funny, and there was another one as well. It's escaping me at the moment, but Wilds fans are renowned for their signs, and I just thought it was absolutely hilarious to have a little play on it. Sean Johnson's partner out there with the signs in full blast as well. But yeah, man, absolutely, yeah, it's fantastic, and I can't wait to see sort of what he does next as well. In the interview after the game, he was talking more about the pathway program that he's going to be hopefully doing with the Warriors and young halfbacks coming through. So you're going to see a lot more of SJ, I'd say, around the Warriors as well, which is fantastic. But, mate, we've got to move on. It's round 27. It's the final round. All of these odds are accurate as of Tuesday at 6 p.m. As for the bets this week, man, honestly, if I'm going to be honest, I'm not really liking a lot of it. I don't really like this kind of round of footy to bet on. There's a couple of games that mean a little bit more than other games, but I feel like it might be a little bit sticky. But we're kicking it off with the Broncos. They take on the Storm at Suncorp Stadium. The Storm, they are $1.19 favourites. The Broncos are heavy $4.75 underdogs with a juicy line of 15.5. For the Storm, Fa'alongo, he takes over at fullback. Hughes, Warbrick and Meaney, they all return. Coates, he is back in after his injury in round 17, and all of the forwards are obviously back on deck after being rested. Is it a concern for you, Pappenhausen? It's just been deemed as a corked, not thigh, but that's what it was throughout the game. He had scans on it, and they identified, obviously, the bruising on the bone. I've had a few ACL injuries, so it's when the knee is, initially when that happens with the mechanisms, it's when the bones bump against each other. So he's obviously not done that, but it creates like a tender kind of form around there. So it's just a precaution, obviously resting him. What do you make of it all, man? Because I am a little bit worried with Pap, and, availability is your best ability, but for him to be out there and sort of absorbing the knocks and continue playing is obviously only going to be better for him. These knocks are going to hurt that little bit more.
Yeah, whenever I see Pappenhausen not in the lineup, and it is due to an injury, and the way you explained it sounds nothing. Like, it does sound like it is a significant injury. It does always worry me in terms of Pappenhausen, because he has spent so much time off the footy field with injury over the last couple of years. So him at 100%, we haven't seen in years. So him going into a final series where the footy gets as intense as it's ever going to be at 80% max is always a cause for concern. But to be fair, Fa'alongo did a really good job last week in the fullback position. He's not Pappenhausen like for like, but he can kind of replicate the value of a Pappenhausen and do his best job to fill that void that Pappenhausen does leave. I am concerned for Pappenhausen. I'm not fully concerned for the Storm.
Yeah, the only thing I spoke about the Storm spine last week, and I reckon he's kind of the key to it all. You know, Harry Grant's fantastic when he gets a quick play the ball outside of the ruck. Hughes and Munster will do their thing, but it's that speed through the middle for them and that link play. And I reckon he's kind of that key to unlocking it all for them. But for the Broncos...
That is something that Fa'alogo can do. Like, it's going to... Maybe it's not the right time of year to be able to learn those sort of skills, but he is a fast guy. So if he just gets the right training... If he gets the right preparation and training, he might be able to do a like-for-like job almost. But I understand what you're saying. I don't think he will be able to do it to the effect of a Pappenhausen.
Yeah. Fa'alogo, over or under 3.5 goose steps in this one?
Oh, on his first run back, if he has enough space, he'll probably do over in that one run.
For the Broncos, they got Stags out. So Cobbo, he shifts to the centres. Corey Oates comes in on the wing. Baker into the front row to replace Haas. Piakura is out as well, and Willison is serving his one-game ban. This is a 57th meeting between these two. The Storm have dominated, winning 41 of their total matches against the Broncos. At Suncorp, they have a 77% win rate and have won 8 of their last 9 games against the Broncos here. The last time that they played at Suncorp and the Broncos won, it was a 26-0 scoreline. Before that, but they hadn't beaten Melbourne there since 2009. Melbourne, mate, they own Brisbane. I don't think anything changes this week. Storm win.
Yeah, so the Storm already beat the Broncos earlier this year with pretty similar teams. Maybe even the Broncos are a little bit more injury depleted now. And it's just two teams going in opposite directions for me. Like, the Storm did lose last week, but they actually showed a real valiant effort for a real young team that was, you know, all over the park and compared to their usual squad. And the Storm have locked up the minor premiership 2 weeks ago, whereas the Broncos have lost 3 of their last 5 and looked absolutely pathetic against the Dolphins last week. In a game where they needed to win to keep their hopes alive for the top 8, they played absolutely abysmal. So I have to go with the Storm as well. If we're looking at try scorers, Katoa scored a double against the Broncos last time and has scored 3 in his last 2 games. And I like the matchup of him going up against Jaden Hunt, who was a little bit more inexperienced. So I'm going to go Storm head-to-head into Katoa anytime try scorer at $2.75. I'm not going to go crazy on a Storm 13 plus or anything like that, just because the Broncos have shown signs at time and did play them real close in that first game earlier this year. But I think the Storm have enough to get it done, especially with a full team.
Yeah, I like it. The only thing that concerns me as well for the Broncos is the Storm rested, ready to go for this week so they could build and get some momentum heading into the finals. So it'll be interesting. Will Warbrick, he scored 3 tries in his last 2 games against the Broncos. Melbourne have won 15 of their last 16 games against the Broncos, and 8 of the last 9 games between these two at Suncorp has gone over 50.5 total points. I'm going Will Warbrick, overs, and the Storm to win at $3.30. All right, mate, Spoon Bowl. The battle for last place. The Tigers, they take on the Eels at Campbelltown Sports Stadium. Man, they should have had a petition in this to shift it to Leichhardt. Get the hill packed out there, man. Get that grassroots footy feeling going in there. But the Eels, they are $1.66 favourites. The Tigers, $2.23 underdogs, and the line is at a tight 2.5. The Tigers, Caesar is back for them. He's been named despite a shoulder injury that he suffered against Manly. Junior Tupou, he shifts to the wing as well. For the Eels, Tulagi is back for them, so Lane reverts back into prop, and Sean Russell comes in on the wing for Tungo. The Eels have won 29 of their 47 games against the Tigers. The Eels have a 50% win rate here, and the Tigers have a 41% win rate here. The Eels have won 9 of their last 11 games against the Tigers, but the Tigers have won the most recent meeting between the two, 17-16. And they also won the most recent meeting between the two at Campbelltown Sports Stadium, 51-26. Mate, we saw a very high-scoring game put on the Eels last weekend. The Tigers missed the second most tackles in the comp with 871, and the Eels are just behind them with 846. The Eels have scored a total of 501 points this season. That's 11th in the league. So points are probably going to be on offer in this one. The Tigers, though, they have scored the least amount of points this year with 437. Tigers fans, though, they'll love this shit. They haven't had anything to celebrate in years. They've always been down the bottom. They've always been winning the spoon and winning it fucking early. They don't have a game like this to rally behind and get behind. And this is what they're kind of all about. And it's the narrative of Benji, I guess, getting them off the bottom as well. I think Campbelltown, it's obviously sold out. It's going to be packed with Tigers fans. They're going to get behind their Tigers, and I think they are going to win the Spoon Bowl and hand the Eels the most spoons ever in franchise history.
Damn, I did not know the Eels were staring down a bit of history like that. Yeah, this is the most important game of the year so far. I'm glad. I'm cracking up at how much stats you had to bring to offer for this game, because this is going to be a big one. This is going to be a huge one. The Tigers are looking to get back to the heights they were in 2022 when they were 16th place. They want to get back there. They want to go back to their old glory. And I tell you what, I like that you brought up that they won their last meeting. They have been looking good. They won the last 2 games in a row, and they're averaging like a respectable 23.2 points per game in their last 5. And you did highlight that the Eels have been good on attack too, but they're conceding over 3 more points on defense and are really crumbling at the back end of games. Last week was not the first time that they crumbled at the back end of a game. The Broncos gave them all sorts of problems the week before. The Warriors scored like 20 points. I think most of that was in the last 10 minutes against the Eels a few weeks ago. So I think the Tigers, I agree, are going to be a little more hungrier, a little more fresher off the bye, and will fight harder down the stretch than the Eels, who have proven to tail off. So I'm going to say the Tigers win an absolute battle, take the not spoon home. They take the bowl, they give the Eels the spoon, and they get the job done 1-12 at $3.60.
Nice, I like it. And I like that you brought up that they're coming in off the bye, mate. Now, he's been their best player all year. That's Lockie Galvin. I'm taking him to crossover here in this one. In a big game, I want to see the young guys step up, and I think he'll take this game by the horns. The Eels have lost their last 11 games in a row to teams coming off the bye. I've got the Tigers to win in that one. So I'm taking Lockie Galvin and the Tigers to win at $6.25. And now, like me and probably quite a few other punters out there, would have got on early and taken the Tigers to win the spoon early on and probably invested a little bit of money as well. I wonder how many people are hedging their bets on this one as well, because I'm kind of on the fence as well. Like, I'm backing the Tigers to win this one, but I've obviously got them to win the spoon. And I'm kind of wondering, do I just hedge something on it a little bit and just maybe take a little bit of profit from it, or do I just stick to it and ride it out?
Oh, it's hard to say, because you want to be emotionally invested.
Yeah.
Do you like the Tigers more than the Eels, is my question?
I want the
With
Tigers.
the Benji Marshall?
I want the Tigers to win this. I want the narrative of it all. I like the players. I like that it's at Campbelltown. It's a home game for them. I'm really rooting for them.
So I would probably bet a value that hedges it for winning more for the Tigers, like maybe just do some try scorers, like maybe hit a line or something, or maybe just stake a huge amount, just so it feels really good when the Tigers do win, and it kind of like supersedes if the Tigers lose. And like, I mean, you're a winner either way, but like, yeah, I reckon hedge your bets.
All right, I'll juice something up. I'll try and find something maybe a little bit safer. Maybe no try scorers, because we could end up with like a 4-6 kind of scoreline or something. Now the Rabbitohs, mate, they take on the Roosters at Accor Stadium. This one's always a belter. The Roosters are $1.26 favourites. The Rabbitohs are $3.90 underdogs, and the line is at 11.5. So for the Roosters, Sandon Smith, he takes over at halfback. I'm really glad that they've pulled trigger on this. I did not want to see Joseph Manu at 5'8" in this one and Kerry shifted to halfback. Watson in at hooker, Suali'i's back. Tupanua shifts in to replace Radley as well. It's come out and said that the Roosters have said that they will most likely honour their contract negotiations with Sam Walker over the off-season despite the ACL injury for him, which is really, really good to see. It's such a shame that this has happened. He did the same injury, obviously not the same injury, but last year he partially tore his ACL. They opted not to have, obviously, the surgery on it, and he's gone through the whole season, and it's obviously just given way recently. It's so tough, man. Building so they've been building so well into this. The finals run that sort of just means a little bit more to them, and as a team itself, with everyone that's departing over the year, as opposed to a lot of other teams as well. And he's gonna be the catalyst in this. He's gonna be that guy. We've seen Sandon Smith come in and do a job for them, and Luke Keary, but it's a different ball game in finals, and he was kind of just that ace in their back pocket that they had, the creativity that he has, that flair. He's kind of like almost like a Munster esque kind of player out there where he can just break a game open a little bit differently with something kind of creative. Just a huge blow, man. And not just him, Brandon Smith and Victor Radley as well.
Yeah, it is. It's a cursed franchise almost because it seems around this time of year, leading into the finals, the Roosters always suffer some catastrophic injuries that really affects their title chances. And although Radley and Brandon Smith are huge losses as well, the biggest one is definitely Sam Walker because we kind of saw what it looked like against the Raiders when he did go down. They did have heaps of territory and heaps of possession, but they just couldn't cross the line, and the tack looked really clunky trying to penetrate the line in that second half. So, yeah, the Roosters, it's a huge, huge blow for them. And I think, yeah, like you can probably scratch their title chances now because I think Sam Walker is worth at least 20 to 30 points for this Roosters offense.
Yeah, well, he's sitting third in total points scored on the season, out of all players at the moment. He's been absolutely fantastic. For the Rabbitohs, though, Cody Walker is moving back to 5'8". Hawkins will shift to halfback in the absence of Jack Whiten. Obviously decimated with injuries from the Roosters. They're going to look to try and get back on track before a finals run. They have won their last 3 games in a row against the Rabbitohs, but at a core, the Rabbitohs have won 4 of their last 5 games against them. When I was doing my notes, mate, I wanted to wait here on the team list before I pulled trigger on a prediction here, and I was gonna pull trigger on Souths. No Wyden though, and Manu not at 5'8". That's what's convinced me. I just think the Chooks will play that little bit better. I agree with you. Points just didn't seem to flow with them, obviously, against the Raiders because every time that it went out to him, and it's not a knock too much on him. Obviously, you want to realise the position that you're playing and when you get changed there throughout the game. But he hasn't been training there at 5'8". He isn't a 5'8". I almost wouldn't even say he's kind of like a fullback kind of esque player at the moment, just with his finishing ability, being able to give that last pass. But yeah, with Manu not there at 5'8", it's convinced me to back the Chooks in this one. But if I'm out there, I want to if you're watching this, pay attention to how they play and just figure out what side they're going to run, what that attack's going to look like and how it's going to flow. If it's going to be all left kind of dominant and they're going to start going with Keary, pay attention to them because, yeah, if it does look like it can somewhat click, it'll be interesting. But, yeah, look, I'm concerned for them.
Yeah, and I did actually have the exact same mindset as you because of all the injuries for the Roosters. But I can't take the Rabbitohs in good conscience as well because they have lost 6 in a row and they're averaging 13 points per game over that stretch, and they've just lost Whiten as well. And I do agree, like, Joey Manu is an exceptional athlete, but he definitely does fit the mold more of a center or a fullback because he is relatively low IQ and a bit of an individualist, if I am being honest. So having him in a half role is just bad news. So I like that they've gone with Sandon Smith. And you do look, we've talked about it all year. You look at this forward pack, they still have a lot of depth. So they do lose Radley and Brandon Smith, but it's still looking pretty good. So if you look at last week's game, they still dominated territory and position against the Raiders. It was just that finishing touch that couldn't get them across the line. But I think it'll look a little bit better this week. And I think they should be able to roll over the hatless bunnies. Not going with any try scorers just because of what you said in terms of not knowing how it's going to look. But I am going to go Roosters 13 plus at $2.
Nice. Yeah, I'm just going to take a try scorer. I'm going to take Dom Young because he scores tries, and I just feel like that's my only way to go here. And I'm going to take the Roosters. I'm not going to take them on a margin. I'm not going to take anything around that because I am super, super worried about what this is going to look like. So I've just got Dom Young and the Roosters at $1.80. The Dragons, they take on the Raiders at Jubilee Stadium. I believe if the Knights and the Finns draw, and I think it's and the winner of this obviously wins and wins very, very well. That 2% chances that they can go through. Sorry, that's the Raiders. The Dragons are $1.65 favourites in this one. The Raiders are $2.25 underdogs, and the line is at 2.5. For the Raiders, Fogarty's back along with Ethan Strange, and Weeks moves back to fullback for Rapana. That's super sad, man. That obviously the injury to Rapana, and that's probably the last time we're going to see him in that Raiders uniform as well. So that's a tough one. The Dragons, Moses Sully returns from injury. Jacob Little is also back, and Blake Laurie has been added to the bench for them. 11 wins this year for the Dragons and 10 for the Raiders. It's a home game for the Dragons, but the Raiders have a 71% win rate at the venue. They've won their last 3 games against the Dragons. I don't know if you saw the presser after last week, but Flanagan, he looked absolutely shot after what they produced out there. You'd like to hope that they would want to end on some kind of high, but I don't think so with the Dragons. I know they sort of, I guess, turned a corner this year. The inconsistency was there for sure, but they kind of had an identity. But I don't really see them kind of ending on any kind of high here. And these games, they suit the Raiders and they fucking suit Ricky Stewart. He'll have them up for this. He'll just want to kind of, kick those cunts while they're down. That's his mentality. That's that Raiders mentality. So I'm going to take the Raiders to win here.
Yeah, and the Raiders have won the last 2 matchups against them as well, and they've won their last 2 games against some top competition, the circumstances aside, but it was still top competition in the Panthers and the Roosters, and they proved to be a tough, gritty team to beat, whereas the Dragons have lost their last 2 and are coming off an awful performance against the Eels up until that last 10 minutes when they looked like the best team in the NRL. But other than that, they've looked awful for that game, and I can understand why Flanagan was a bit shot because it just was a bad performance. There is some players that it's almost like Jekyll and Hyde. Like I look at a Leilua, and Leilua is an absolute freak of an athlete, but he does some really like dumb mistakes sometimes, and he is a really bad defender. And there's a few players like that, like Molo's ill-disciplined, but he is a hard carrier. There's just a little bit of fat that might need to be trimmed in this offseason, but I do agree they have turned a corner and they can slowly build next year and hopefully be a pretty good contender. But in terms of this game, I got to back the Raiders because I like them in this situation. The defense for the Dragons has been atrocious, letting in a combined 82 points in those last 2 games. And it could be slippery, so I could see a close game. And slippery always sort of benefits the forward pack for those Raiders. So I'm going to go Raiders 1-12 at $3.60 because Raiders love a 1-12.
Nice. Yeah, I'm going to back you up on that, mate. So Tomoko, he's had a bit of a quiet back end of the season, but he has scored 3 tries in his last 2 games against the Dragons, and I'm backing him to score on this one. Now, the last 6 games between these two has ended in a 1-12 victory to either team. So I'm going to go Matt Tomoko to score and either team to win 1-12. That's $4.50, and that's what I'm going to be double staking this week. The Bulldogs, they take on the Cowboys at Accor Stadium. The Doggies, they're $1.71 favourites. Cowboys, $2.14 underdogs. For the Bulldogs, Critter is back. He will partner Kiraz in the centres with Cherry out for his 1-game ban. Matt Burton, though, he won't play in this one after failing his HIA, and that sees Hutchinson move in to wear the 6th jersey. The Cowboys, just one change for them. McKaylee is back in on the bench. So both teams have had 14 wins this season entering this game. The Cowboys have scored 613 points this season, and they have conceded more than what the Bulldogs have scored this year. So defense has been an absolute shit show for the Cowboys. At the venue, the Dogs have a 54% win rate and the Cowboys have a 41% win rate. And the last 4 meetings between the two have been split with 2 wins each. Now, the Dogs, they slipped up last week against Manly, but the same thing happened to Manly just a couple of weeks ago against the Tigers. And I want to see those lessons learnt before finals. This is just simple logic. I think they are the better team than the Cowboys. I know Matt Burton isn't out there for them, but I do really like what Toby Sexton has to offer, and I want to see him kind of stamp his authority in on this game. And I do think that the play style for them just suits this game a little bit more, that nutty, that knit and grit, grind it out kind of type of affair, and I want to see them get their identity back in this one. So I'm backing the Bulldogs to win here.
Yeah, so the Bulldogs, for me, They have been real good recently, I will agree, but they did get a little exposed last week. They got cut up by a really good attack in Manly.
They got
Their
bullied
defense has been
right through the middle. And that's what
their
we've.
defense has been really good, but that's what I was just going to get to.
Mm,
They've been really struggling. Their size kind of got caught out there because they do have a relatively small forward pack. I know they were missing Kurt Mann, who was a good defender, but I was really concerned about their size through the middle. And I know the Cowboys don't have as big of a forward pack as the Sea Eagles, but they're just as good on attack, averaging 35.2 points per game over their last five. And they do have Talmalolo back in the fold, who will be a huge factor in this game and no burden to kick them out of danger if they do find themselves in territorial stuck positions. So I am actually going to back the Cowboys. The Cowboys did win their last meeting 20-18, and they did look dusty last week as well against a young Storm team. But their attack is still good enough to get it done. And I think with Malolo back in, they will be able to assert some sort of ascendancy through the middle. So I like this game being a close matchup, though. The last two matchups between these two teams were 1-12, and the Bulldogs' average losing margin this season is 9.4 points. So they lose close if they do lose. So I'm going to say the Cowboys 1-12 at $3.50 is the play.
nice. I like it. Critter, he's been a gun for them all year. I think a win starts off the back of a performance from him, and I think a try might be a part of that. Jacob Preston, he's scored a double the last time that they played against each other, so I'm backing him in for one. I've got Critter, Preston, and Dogs to win at $10. The Panthers, they take on the Titans at Bluebet Stadium. Panthers, they're $1.11 favourites. The Titans are whopping $2.70 underdogs, and the line is at 17.5. For the Panthers, Scotty Too Hottie, he comes back in for them. Garner moves to the bench. For the Titans, Kinney returns at fullback, but Fafita will miss this as he heads to get surgery on his ankle, which sees Cleese Haas move into the starting squad. 24 games played between these two. The Panthers have won 17 of them. The Titans struggle here with a 36% win rate. The Panthers at home have a 70% win rate. The Panthers have won their last 5 games in a row against the Titans, and 4 of those have been by a 13-plus margins. The Titans have lost their last 4 games, and all 4 games of those have been by 13-plus losses. I think the Panthers win this one.
Okay, so the Panthers have won their last 2 meetings against the Titans, and although they've looked like a diluted version of their championship selves, they still are sitting in second, and they're still winning games for the most part, even with Cleary out of the fold. So I do like the Panthers here. The Titans, man, they've fallen off an absolute cliff, losing 4 in a row and only scoring 13 points per game and conceding 40 points per game in that stretch. So it's absolute nightmare season for the Titans as they close out the season. They were looking so good, had a bit of promise there for a bit, but it's gone back to where they started the season. So unfortunate for the Titans. They do lose David Fafita as well, who, to be fair, has been pretty quiet lately. So it's not a huge loss, although it is someone that the defense still needs to game plan around and still needs to put bodies in front of. But yeah, he's been a little bit disappointing lately. So I am going to back the Panthers to win pretty comfortably, especially with what they've got on the line, being looking for a second place finish and hopefully a home first round matchup so they can get that bye for the second round. In terms of try scorers, Taruva has scored 4 tries in his last 2 starts. He's been looking pretty good lately. They've got Luai out on that left edge, so I think they will go down there again. I'm going Panthers 13 plus into Taruva anytime try scorer at $2.30.
Nice. Yeah, I'm just keeping it real simple for this one, mate. Hoping the stats don't lie. I'm just taking the Panthers 13 plus at $1.47. Manly take on the Sharks at 4 Pines Park. Manly are $1.83 favourites in this one. The Sharks are $2.01 underdogs, and the line is at 1.5. For Manly, Kohler shifts to fullback. For Turbo, Fa'alolo comes in on the wing there for Saab. For the Sharks, Ramian and Mulatalo are back for them. Atkinson goes to the bench. Stone Street and Hamlin Ueli drop to the reserves, where Talakai is also listed as he looks to return. 24 wins for Manly of the 37 games that they've played between each other. The Sharks have won 3 of their last 4 games played against Manly and won their last 2 games against them at 4 Pines Park. Manly have also won their last 10 games in a row at home. This one's a pretty tough one, man. The Sharks started to come right a little bit against the Wires, but then just did what they seem to always do and roll over when that momentum shifts. And it's just a bit of a concerning thing that it's something that we always sort of start to see. And it's a game that kind of has a lot on the line. Manly will want to be dominant. and try to see this game home and get a finals home game first up. And the Sharks will want that as well. The Sharkies don't want to be going up against a team away from home. They want to be back at the Shire there and kind of cement themselves into some kind of finals run. So there is a lot to play for, but I just saw a lot of red flags from the Sharks. But Manly kind of do this after a good performance. They kind of show some troubling signs as well. And obviously, Tommy Turmo out for them is a concern. I just I think that the Sharks might roll over a little bit here, and it's just something that I've seen way too much. And I do think Manly have what it's take to go on a deep finals run, so I think they're going to hit some form. Manly win.
Okay. I sense a little trepidation from you. You're usually pretty stoic and really like to back your boys in terms of the Seagulls. So I can sense that this game does give you a bit of concern. I am going to go the other way. I do think the Sharks will get this done. The Sharks did win the last meeting at Four Pines Park, 20-14, which we've talked about how much of a fortress this is. So that is actually a good win. And despite differing results last week, the Sharks have been in better form lately than the Seagulls, only just because the Seagulls have been all right, but they have won 4 of their last 5. They're averaging only 2 points per game less on attack than Manly in the last 5, which is surprising considering how good Manly has been on attack, but they're conceding 12 points per game less on defense and just ran into some absolute inspired Warriors team playing with some passion last week. So I'm not going to hold too much against the Sharks in terms of that Warriors game. And they do get one of the form centers. Speaking of centers in terms of Herbie and the other guy we mentioned before, Ramian has been one of those guys as well. Crichton was who you said. But Ramian has been one of those guys as well. And the Seagulls have lost 2 key attacking pieces in Turbo and Saab. And a lot of their success last week was off the back of their bullying pack. And that's not going to be the case this week as they come up against a monster Sharks pack. So in terms of the conditions, it could be slippery as well, which might stem the Seagulls' attack. So I am going to go the Sharks to cover a -4.5 line at $2.70. And because I think they're good underdog value, I'm going to double stake that as well.
Nice. I'm gonna regret this, man. It's so often when you're at the poker table and you see red, 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 and you go away from it, it normally lands on red. So I'm steering away from Hamole, unfortunately, this week, and I feel like I might regret it, but I'm going for a roughie in this one. Lachlan Croker has scored in 3 of his last 4 games against the Sharks. I'm just going to take him for one here. If it's wet, I can see something slightly through the middle there, or him just crashing over close to the line, and that'll give you $6.50. The Knights, they take on the Dolphins at McDonald Jones Stadium. The Knights are $1.70 favourites. The Dolphins, $2.16 underdogs, with the line sitting at 2.5. So for the game with it all on the line, mate, the Knights have got Frizzell back. Gamble is brought into the 14 spot for them. Kaipers Paul is listed among the reserves as he looks to potentially return as well. For the Dolphins, Jesse and Nikarima are back for them. Nichols to the bench and Katoa to the reserves. Now, I think Wayne, this is Wayne. I wouldn't be surprised if Hammer goes to fullback, Avarillo to centre, Cody and Katoa both come in, but he might just not even do that and roll out the squad and win, because this is just what we expect from him. This will be the 4th match obviously played between these two. The Knights have won 2 of them. Only one game played at McDonald Jones Stadium. Fins up. They won that one, 26-20. And I think we'll see a scoreline similar to that in this one. I'm going Fins up, man. You can't back against the GOAT. I think Wayne is going to take the Dolphins to the finals. It's you talk about all these storybook endings. Wayne's taken this new franchise and you're not rebuilding it, but he's gone above and beyond with what they've achieved. You've got the Tigers that haven't been off the bottom for longer than the Dolphins have been in the comp, and they're staring at a finals berth, mate. It's just, I think they're going to do it. If not for anything else, they'll do it for Wayne. They're going to leave it all out there for him. I'm going Fins up in this.
Yeah, this is it is a battle for the top 8 in the very final game of the round. And it's 2 teams that are pretty similar quality if you look at them. So this is a tough game to pick. And it is especially tough given what the Dolphins rolled out last week in terms of the squad and it absolutely working. So I have a tough time really evaluating whether that was lightning in a bottle for the Dolphins or whether this is truly the new squad that they're going to be taking into the finals that is going to show success through potentially a finals run for them. So it is a tough game to pick, but I am going to be conservative. I'm going to stick with the Knights because although the Dolphins played fantastic this week, the Knights played pretty good themselves for a decent stretch against the Titans, and they've looked a lot better with Kalen Ponga coming into form, and then Bradman Best added a little bit, and Gagai's been real good out there as well. So I do like what I'm seeing from the Knights all of a sudden, and they have been in better winning form, winning 3 of their last 4 and only losing by a drop goal, whereas the Dolphins had 2 very ugly losses to the Storm and Bulldogs. It's not this Dolphins team, which makes this pick really difficult to make, but I'll back the more recent consistency of the Knights at home in a very close top 8 battle. We'll get to some of my betting a bit later in the 40-20s and repeat set bets, but I am going to just stick with Knights 1-12 at $3.40 for my best bet.
You don't bet your teams, bro. You shat on the Ys, you shat on the ABs, and now you're shitting on the Finns, mate.
I've thought about the way I bet and the way I pick. I've got like a little triangle, and there's like bias, there's controversy, like hot take, and then there's just trying to be like conservative and right. And I'm definitely like tilted more to this triangle.
Oh dear. My best bet for this game, I'm just going 2 gun fullbacks on display in this one. One of them's been named in the centres though, but he could be named at fullback on kickoff. So I think they both score, and that's Hammer and Ponga both to score at $4.50. My best bets for this one, we're starting with the Brick over 50.5 and the Storm to win at $3.30. Tigers, Lockie Galvin, they win the Spoon Bowl, $6.25. Dom Young and the Roosters to win $1.80. Tomoko and either team to win by 1-12 at $4.50. Credit Preston and the Dogs to win their matchup at $10. Panthers 13 plus $1.47. The Roughie, Lachlan Croker, anytime try score at $6.50, and ending it with Hammer and Ponga at $4.50.
And I'm starting off with the Storm head-to-head into Katoa, anytime try scorer at $2.75. Tigers 1-12 at $3.60. Roosters 13 plus at $2. Raiders 1-12 at $3.60. Cowboys 1-12 at $3.50. Panthers 13 plus into Taruva, anytime try scorer, $2.30. Sharks -4.5 at $2.70, double stake. And Knights 1-12 at $3.40.
Nice. We're moving to the repeat set bets and the 40-20s. Kicking it off with the repeat set bet, mate. I've got 2 locks here. I've got Storm and the Panthers. They're probably going to get it done. And then I want to see out the footy, and I want to anchor it with the Dolphins to win at $2.85. That's what I'm going to go for a lock. I think maybe the Dolphins aren't a lock, but Wayne Bennett, he's a lock. So I'm going to trust him, Wayne.
And I'm going a similar sort of tactic. I'm just going with 2 locks, but I'm adding a little bit of a margin onto the other one. I'm going Roosters head-to-head into Panthers 13 plus at $1.98.
Nice, I like it. 40-20 bets, mate. We're going for that long raking punt. I hit one last week. I hope I can hit it again here to end the season. I'm just going to pick centres. I like the value a little bit more that we're seeing this round. So I've got Will Penasini in the Spoon Bowl, Matt Tomoko because I like the stats that he's got, and then Tungo because he's just up against a real rocky Titans edge, and that'll give you $14.48.
And for my 40-20 bet, we're going from a bit of a 40-20 into a bit of a drop kick. And for my 40-20 bet, I'm going the Knights versus Dolphins to be a successful drop kick within the game at $5.75. I think it's going to be a close game, a lot on the line, so I think someone's going to get a drop kick.
I like it, man. I like it. You've gone for the 1-point field goal to give you the 40-20 bet. All right.
Yes.
All right.
I can't hit a 40-20 off the kick, so I got to try something different.
Yeah. All right, guys. We'll see you all next week as we get into a finals preview. And enjoy the Spoon Bowl.